Now, you're probably justifiably inquiring, where have I been for the past 2 months? That's a good question, viewer of unknown and unspecified identity. So good, in fact, that I'm not even gonna try to form a response. Take this shrug face instead. Anyway, it's probably no surprise to any of you that I'm half past sick of Ruby, and while I still do want to say what I have to say about Volume 4, it's just not fun to talk about. That being considered, I've decided that this month, instead of making part 4, I'd take another little detour into something I actually enjoy. This time around, instead of an anime, we're going to be having a look at a rhythm game, one that I've thoroughly enjoyed since I started playing it. A game by the name of Friday Night Funkin'. What? PaRappa? No! I specifically told you Friday Night Funkin'. What do I pay you for? The two sound nothing alike. I could fire you right here and right now. Fine. Rhythm games have always been pretty hit or miss for me. I dig games like Friday Night Funkin' and Guitar Hero, but also is the bane of my existence, and Taiko no Tatsujin makes me want to swallow a plastic explosive. That being said, I do find older rhythm games from the 5th gen and before to be pretty interesting, the controls in specific. Aside from games with unique control schemes, mouse and keyboard are pretty widely agreed upon to be the best way to play most rhythm games. In the 90s, though, the PC master race was only in its infancy, and home consoles were the main platforms to play on and develop for. What am I getting at? Well, the original PlayStation controller, while not quite as fucking insane as the N64 controller, wasn't exactly made for rhythm games. And when a rhythm game is made for a controller that isn't made for rhythm games, you end up in a place where it can work, or not work at all. Enter PaRappa the Rapper. We play as PaRappa the Rapper, a rapper dog made of paper who has a stupid fucking orange hat. I hate it! He's hanging out at Chunky Burger with his friends, Sunny Funny, Katy Cat, and PJ, when they're approached by bullies. They stand there and taunt the gang for a moment, but then a man comprised of 70% chin and 30% haircut by the name of Joe Chin emerges from the bathroom wearing a cape and attempts to impress everyone by vigilantly defeating the bullies and saving the day, but ends up killing them with his introduction alone. Everyone's pretty unimpressed and ends up leaving, except PaRappa, who's in complete shock and awe at Joe Chin's amazing heroism, and decides that he wants to become a hero himself. But how's he gonna do that? You gotta believe. Stage 1 is Chop Chop Master Onion's Fruits Dojo, and right off the bat, the thing that stands out the most is the UI. Typically in a rhythm game, you'd have a variation on the standard rhythm game go-around. A system where the notes come at you, you hit them, and it tells you whether you hit them or not, and what accuracy you hit them with, often with a score counter of some sort or life bar on the sides. PaRappa is not a typical rhythm game. The UI is comprised of 3 main components, 2 of which there's a shit to give about. A box where the lyrics are displayed, the notes put along a bar at the top of the screen with a miniature version of the head of whoever's rapping sliding along, and an indicator on the bottom right which tells you how you're doing. Cool, good, bad, or awful. This system has a lot of problems. For one, unlike many rhythm games where you get a clear indicator of whether a button's held down or not, there's no way here to know whether you actually hit a note. The only real feedback you actually get from the game is the status indicator on the bottom right. Problem being that the way that goes is unpredictable as fuck. There have been times when I've hit every note in a line precisely and correctly, and I get thrown down into bad. But there have also been times when I've missed notes and been sent up to good. I don't get it. Anyway, the stage itself is pretty easy. The patterns are simple. His name is Chop Chop Master Onion. I think I've covered all there is to cover here. Moving on, PaRappa and the gang are hanging out at Fat Donut, and they all agree to go to the beach, but realize they can't due to their lack of transportation, since none of them can drive. At that very moment, however, Joe Chin himself pulls over with his convertible super stretch limo 900, and after spending a bit fawning over it and calling it fat, they agree to let him give him a ride. PaRappa, though, pictures himself driving his own car with Sunny Funny next to him, and gets an idea. Get a license and impress Sunny Funny. But how's he gonna do that? He gotta believe. Stage 2 is driving lessons under an instructor whose name is Mussolini. She is in fact a moose. Yeah, and she will only let PaRappa get a license if he can get through her rap. Why does it say here that Mussolini has, quote, a dumpy? There's no excuse for this. This is probably my favorite stage to play. I like this song, and the note patterns are solid and don't go into weird syncopated bullshit that doesn't fit the already flawed way the game's designed, like another stage we'll get into later. Although I would like to say that I prefer the version of the backing track that plays when you're in bad or awful to the one that plays in good or cool. Other than that, there isn't much else to say. Mussolini is possibly the least competent driving instructor I've ever seen. She forgets to close the car door, she tells PaRappa to hit the brakes in the middle of the street, and she completely ignores the hood of the car flying off, and the fact that when the hood flies off, there's literally no engine. And so, after a deleted stage where PaRappa rap battles people to get ahead in line at the PaRappa Town DMV, he ends up getting his license. He drives everyone around for a while, but begins to daydream about Sunny Funny, resulting in PaRappa slamming straight into the front end of a 16-wheeler, sending him literally to space and back. The car pretty much explodes on impact with the ground, leaving all of them somehow alive. But how is he gonna pay for the car? Stage 3 is a flea market run by Prince Fleaswallow, a comically Jamaican hippie frog with a cool shirt who teaches you how to sell goods through the power of rap. The note patterns here are interesting. They're mostly comprised of one note repeated in rapid fashion throughout the course of a line, which actually works, and doesn't actively contradict the game design like something we'll get into in a minute. But I think what stands out the very most here, and I mean this genuinely, is PaRappa in a fucking sombrero. Do you see this shit? This is peak male performance at its finest. This game deserves a fucking Emmy! Anyway, PaRappa ends up selling enough to buy a new car. Later, once again, we see the gang at Fat Donut planning for Sunny Funny's birthday party. PaRappa ends up with the job of getting the cake, and after buying one, he meets Joe Chin again, who has a cake towering into the atmosphere. After spending an undisclosed amount of elapsed time explaining the subtle artistic intricacies of the cake, Joe Chin casually shoves PaRappa, sending him face planting into his own cake. PaRappa is now without a cake and without money. What's he gonna do now? He decides to make his own cake and turns on his TV to the Cheap Cheap Cooking Show to learn the recipe for a seafood cake. This is stage 4. Remember how I've been talking about something that completely contradicts the entire design of the game and works against the UI and controls in every conceivable way? Welcome to hell. The note patterns in the past 3 stages were mostly solid and comprehensive. Take that and throw it out the fucking window. The patterns here are almost completely made of confusing, syncopated rhythms that, paired with the fucked hit window and built-in control latency, make this stage a complete nightmare. When you have a UI that shows you coming at the notes instead of the notes coming at you, gives you no feedback as to how you're doing other than an arbitrary indicator that's stupid and unpredictable, having strange and discernible patterns only works against the game design and the player and makes the game not fun at all. PaRappa's design is anti-player. Don't let that be misconstrued as me being a games journalist. I'm not a difficulty junkie myself, but I can completely respect games being however hard they want to be. There's a difference between being hard and being designed against the player. Sunny Funny's birthday goes well, and Kitty Cat decides to drag PJ off and leave PaRappa and Sunny Funny to themselves for a while. All's well until PaRappa realizes he has to shit. So badly, in fact, that he begins to hallucinate, seeing birds as flying toilets. This may be an unfortunate situation for PaRappa, but Sunny Funny apparently thinks he's real hot when he's got a shit. He rushes to a gas station, but when he gets there, he finds out there's a line for the bathroom. A line that just happens to be comprised of all 4 of the previous teachers from all 4 of the previous stages. I would question the logic of the teachers from all 4 previous stages all happening to be in line for the restroom at the exact same gas station at the exact same time, right when PaRappa gets there to do the exact same thing, but I also have to consider that I'm playing a game about a paper dog rapping against an onion who runs a dojo, a moose that can drive, a Jamaican frog, and a chicken who cooks children, all towards the goal of impressing a sunflower who's really into guys who have to shit. Logic is flexible in this world. Anyway, this is stage 5. You rap against all 4 prior teachers for their places in line for the bathroom. A lot of problems from stage 4 carry over here, but I think the most glaring one is this. Remember the weird, unpredictable status indicator I talked about? Well, you may find it's really easy to get thrown into bad or awful, but the game actually never tells you how to get into cool. This can be a problem. Being on good isn't a bad thing, but one mistake, and you're very close to being in bad. Now you'd think the best way to get into cool would be to hit the notes as accurately as possible, right? I'm now going to show you how I got into cool.
Let me tell you something that I never told you before. Listen this. I have never sold everything.
I have never sold everything.
You have never sold everything.
You have never sold everything. You have never sold everything.
You're too wicked for me. You don't understand what is love. Frog need hibernate. Wake me up if you have any trouble.
In order to win, The game wants you to essentially not play the game. I have literally not hit most of the notes in a line and gotten into cool. That goes against the core premise of how rhythm games are supposed to work. You put notes on a screen, the player tries to hit them at the right time. But now, you're telling me I should, in a lot of cases, completely ignore what's on screen and hit notes that aren't even there. Do you have any idea how awkward and incoherent that system is? You're rewarding the player for not playing the game correctly and punishing them for playing the game correctly. That's not good. PaRappa beats all of them and gets to cut in line. He then leaves, Sunny Funny now slightly disappointed with his no longer having to shit. Later, PaRappa receives an invitation to a party at Club Fun and immediately begins fantasizing about impressing Sunny Funny. He calls her up and finds out that she's also been invited to this party, and he is ecstatic. And so we arrive at the 6th and final stage of the game, a live performance by PaRappa and all 4 teachers. Now I want you to imagine every problem that I've pointed out so far, amplified and over a shitty beat. That's stage 6, and there's not much else to say about it. There's no real ending, so I guess that's PaRappa. Let it be known that I actually don't dislike this game. I actually like it quite a bit, as evident by the fact that I actually bought a PaRappa plushie from a Target and didn't consider it a waste of money. That being said, I don't think this game is good in any sense of the word. It's a promising concept and it had potential, but in its execution it's counterintuitive, confusing, frustrating, and as a game it falls apart faster than it can build itself up. I get that it's very primitive, it was very early in the lifespan of modern rhythm games, but it's still bad. I guess I'll have to see if Jammer Lammy and PaRappa 2 improve on it. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment telling me how nitpicking and biased I am. I'm now going to go ironically listen to Death Grips.
Get your bets down, ladies and gentlemen. 4-4's the point, mark 4. Ace, deuce, scrap, wants 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 4. Ace, deuce, ace, ace.